country, no power lines, no dead-end streets. Mother Nature waits for me down in the Northwoods.
Everybody, it is Sealy Dave, and welcome along on another Northwoods Ramble. I'm coming to you once again from my little log cabin office at the base of the Hollywood Hills, just outside bustling downtown Sealy, Wisconsin. Sealy is located on the banks of the Namakagon River and is home to Vortan's Lumber, the Natural Log Home Company, the Lenroot Lodge, and of course the Sawmill Saloon. Or as my wife likes to call it, the Saloon of Bad Decisions. And anybody who witnessed me try to get on my bike and ride home last night after too many beers at the Cabana night last night would probably understand that reference. I can tell you that's also a reason why I like to say their delicious old fashions are finished with a few dashes of regret. But anyway, bad decisions behind me. We're on another episode of the Northwoods Ramble. And so our format for this show will be kind of like the last one, where I'm recording this introduction and Life Above 8 update after I've done an interview with our guest. And our guest on this episode number 6 is Josh Rizzo. Josh is the creator of the website thenorth.com, and that's NXRTH.com, the North. It's Wisconsin, Sylvania area, if reference to the last show, upper Midwest website devoted to bikepacking, gravel riding, and fat biking mostly. So anyway, Josh will be joining us after this introduction and after I give my update on Life Above 8. So right now, and TJ will not be joining us on this show. I ran into TJ at Vortan's Lumber yesterday, and he is swamped working with the 2 rock solid crews building trails at Telemark. He said the work is going great, and they're making really great progress, but he's super swamped, so he doesn't really have time to do the show this week. However, the other guy that works on that project, Joe Vadabancourt, aka Joe V, who has been on one of our previous shows with TJ and I, Joe V is coming back to check in on the project. He lives out in Colorado now, and he's coming back, I think, Monday. So we're probably going to record another show next week with Joe V, and we'll give a more in-depth update on the truck trails powered by OTM at Telemark. So that'll happen next week. So we're just the interview with Josh today and me. And so now I'll move into my update on Life Above 8. This is sort of like my version of the news from Lake Wobegon, which the Prairie Home Companion's a little bit of an inspiration for this podcast. But our update, our news, is from a real town, not a fictional town in Minnesota. Our news is from the Sealy area and Cable Hayward. So every episode, I'll give my little Life Above 8 update on Life Above 8, and that's generally about, what the weather's like, what the trails are like, what the flora and fauna are doing, to sort of give folks, listeners, a little feel for, a little vicarious feel like they're up north if they're sitting at home somewhere down south. And I'll also probably try to add a little news or shout outs to anybody that has something going on up here that's worth mentioning during that segment, if it isn't worthy of a separate interview itself on the show. But so with that, I'll move straight into my update on Life Above 8. As your Hyperborean reporter, I wondered if folks wanted to know where I came up with the Hyperborean name. So that Hyperborea, and this relates to our weather right now too. So Hyperborea was a mythical place the ancient Greeks thought of somewhere in the north. Hyperboreans were the people that lived there, and it was somewhere north of Thrace or something like that. I don't know exactly, but that's the origin for Hyperborean is an ancient Greek Greek mythology, as is the dog days of summer, which is what we find ourselves in right now. I don't know where you're listening from, but most likely it's hot outside wherever you are. It seems like the heat wave is slamming across the south. We are blessed with milder dog days up here in northern Wisconsin. Our temperatures have been in the 80s during the day, although the dew points have been up in the 60s. So that makes for some pretty sweaty firewood making weather and bike riding weather. So I've been sort of limiting both to an hour or two, maybe three at the most. I've been taking shorter bike rides and not spending as much time trying to put firewood in the shed. But the nights have been cooling off into the 50s, and although we've experienced the upside of the mild drought that we're experiencing is the mosquitoes are way down. So I typically don't even put bug spray on when I go out for a bike ride or walk through the woods, and just bring it along in case I need it. The flies have not been too bad. The black flies and deer flies have not been bad at all, which they can follow you ride just as fast as you can going down a gravel road. So they can be a pain sometimes during the summer. I have experienced them worse in some areas than others. I think it depends where you are. So I had the deer flies were pretty bad when I was exploring that area south of the flowage, the Flambeau flowage a couple weeks ago. But I was just up riding in Bayfield County. I was riding, I rode about 2/3 of the Valhalla Beach Party route because I got a couple of ride reports that one section was full of a bunch of deadfalls and wasn't passable. And another section, someone said, thought it looked like it was signed as a private road. So as a route steward, I need to check on those things. So I went up and I rode about 2/3 of it and found that the deadfalls had been cleared by the Forest Service or the local ATV club. And I think the person was mistaken about the private road sign right near the Valhalla View Pub and Grub. There is where you get on the first ATV trail, and it's a big, long, 400-foot soft sandy climb. There's a sign there that says private road, but that's if you go straight, and you're supposed to go left there. So I think that both those, one person probably rode early when earlier in June they said they rode, and that section of ATV trail with the deadfall that they complained about probably hadn't been cleared yet. Early June is still just the end of winter for us, and we had such a bad winter with trees down this year that it probably took a while for the Forest Service or the ATV club to clear that. And then so early season riding on any of the routes that I recommend, you should always be aware of that, the possible deadfall, and that trails and stuff have not, forest roads even, haven't been cleared of deadfall trees. So there may be some additional hike-a-bikes early in the season, just as an FYI. Back to the ancient Greek reference to the dog days of summer. So August is typically the time when you can see the second brightest star in the sky after our sun, Sirius, part of the Canis Major constellation. August is a time when you can start to see that in the morning, just before sunrise. This star is bright enough that even in daylight, with the right conditions, you can see the star Sirius. Canis Major, dog days of summer. And the ancient Greeks also believed, I guess, that the dog days of summer were a time when the weather was so hot that even dogs and men would suffer and go insane. And I guess with the heat wave that most of the southern United States is experiencing, and the terrible climate-induced wildfires that Greece is experiencing, that ancient mythology kind of holds true even for today. But that's why we live here in the Northwoods. We're insulated a little bit from some of that stuff, and so it's been a great time to be out even in the dog days of summer. And I should also admit I'm a little embarrassed. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I had to look up, that's me on the right, when I was president of my high school astronomical society, the Muskego High School Astronomical Society, and I had to look up all that information about the dog days of summer, and I probably should have. You'd think I would have known that from my great knowledge I learned in Astronomical Society in Muskego. Thank you, Mr. Stieber. Rest in peace. He was our science advisor on that. But anyway, so I'm going to jump right into my my more pleasant update on Life Above 8, and I'm going to start with some of the flora that we've been seeing, that I've been seeing on my rides and on my walks. And so I'm going to move over to my computer view, and I'm going to put myself in the corner for the picture in a picture if you're watching this on YouTube. And so right now some friends have been making some complaints about all the spotted knapweed, which is kind of a pink invasive plant, and it sort of like makes all the fields look pink. But if you look closely, you can see the native flowers are still thriving, and the daisies, the pink williams, the birdfoot trefoil are still all in there. Scattered out there, a crown vetch, another gorgeous wildflower, and of course the yellow plant. A lot of the wildflowers seem to be yellow right now, and the brighter ones, the ones that are easier to see, which I guess pairs well with the pink spotted knapweed. The goldenrod. These I found on the side of Telemark Mountain when I was up there the other day checking out the trails. The bladder campions, very pretty. Goat's beard. That's this one. This one is evening primrose. I forgot to put the name on it. Tansies are out. The St. John's wort. And dogbane is still flowering. Dogbane and milkweed are favorites of the butterflies. The tiger swallowtails and the monarchs have been kind of like in good form this year. I've been seeing lots of butterflies, so maybe that's a good thing. And even as the milkweed now is actually this, I shot probably this video that I'm showing right now of the monarch caterpillar and the milkweed flowers being thrashed by ants was shot a couple weeks ago. I think it's kind of going to seed right now with the milkweed pods are starting to form. But so that's it for the update on the flora. And as far as fauna goes, the fawns still have their spots. They're kind of maturing, and they aren't frolicking around as much. That's always really fun to see in the early spring when they get their strength up a little bit, and they all start running around like crazy with each other. And then the bucks, I've been seeing some bucks there in velvet right now, and the antlers are growing. So DNR says it's not going to be a great deer season this year because of the hard winter that we had, and we had another one the year before. However, we had so many trees down. I mentioned this earlier about the deadfall. We had so many trees down, and a lot of them bent over, that there were tops available for the deer to munch, and deer love tops. So I'm hoping, and my other buddy Ben, who was on last show, who's also a big deer hunter, we're hoping that those tops have sort of like helped keep the population healthy. I've been seeing reasonable numbers of deer around here though. So I don't remember if I've got anything else. I'm not totally scripting these shows, but I do write myself some notes, and let me just see if I've got. Oh, I think I had an update a shout out I wanted to give to another shout out to the crew from Iowa, down by Iowa City in particular, that come up for the Hungry Bear and a bunch of the other events up here. A couple of guys just did the Wolf. That's a bikepacking event that Jeremy Kershaw puts on up in the Arrowhead region, up along Lake Superior. He also does the Hell of the North and a number of other races, and the Fox, which I think is a shorter bikepacking race. shout out to the guys from Iowa City for doing that and for getting back to me about a couple of other things, including perhaps coming to take down a big red pine that I have threatening my house. Particularly in storms. We just had a big storm with about 4 inches of rain in an hour and some real near tornado-like winds, and I was pretty worried about that red pine, so I got my fingers crossed. The Bikes and Trees guys from Iowa, who may be up for the Shawinigan Mountain Bike Festival, will be able to take a little time and take down this red pine for me. I have just actually borrowed a whole bunch of climbing gear from another Sealy neighbor and buddy of mine, Roger Bird, who's also coincidentally a former VP at Trek and former professional mountain biker. But I borrowed a whole bunch of climbing gear from him because I was having so much trouble finding a tree service to take down my tree. They're also busy up here and nobody will get back to me. And I'm hoping Jason and the Bikes and Trees guys will be able to help me out. So shout out to those guys. And I think that's it for my intro, and I guess I will move us right into the interview with Josh Rizzo of The North. Again, that's The North, THNXRTH.com. And all right, so here we go with Josh. Anyway, but so welcome, Josh. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, good to be here. This is my first ever podcast of any kind, and my first time in the Dave Cave. So I've always super admired seeing this place in your videos. I love the setup. You got the deer, the fish, you got the hat wall. And I thought this was more of a cave. And now, so you guys, if you're watching, this is like the entrance to Dave's front door. So
it used
really
to
cool
be,
place.
Yeah, it was this little log cabin here. The space that you see was the initial place where the first person lived.
Wow.
And then just kept adding on. So so a number of people I know lived in this log cabin. It did have a loft at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, they lived here in just this little log cabin, which is now my office and the front entrance to our house.
Nice. It's a cool spot.
Yeah. So
well done.
Cool. Well, so why don't I'm glad you could join me here. I mentioned this in the intro, but you run the North website.
Yep.
The North, NXRTH.com. These things will be in the show notes, but and you happen to be up here in Sealy, actually, working from Rome.
Yeah, doing work from Rome.
Why don't you explain what that is?
Yep, my brother is here with me, and we're doing work from Rome. So Rome has Wi-Fi, so we brought our computers.
And Rome is?
Rome Adventure Base Camp, trailside, Scandinavian-inspired adventure cabins. And they have Wi-Fi there, so we are here during the work week. I worked all day yesterday on their Wi-Fi, and then I worked this morning on their Wi-Fi, and then I'm taking the afternoon off. But that meant that I could wake up early at 6 a.m., go on some rides, and then in the evening we biked to Cable and then Sealy for dinner.
Oh.
And just really cool to have out your front door riding. So my brother had to work 45 minutes longer than me. I could just ride right out the front door, go on a quick little loop, and enjoy kind of every minute being up here on the trails.
So Rome Adventure Base Camp is just up Highway 00 from me on Janet Road. It's a handful of miles away from me, but it also is tent camping.
Tent camping too.
And explain about some of the other amenities those little cabins that they've got 4 cabins that sleep like 5 or 6 people.
Yep.
Right?
You sleep up to 6 people.
Kind of cool, modern Scandinavian sort of design.
Yeah, they're small, they're kind of minimalist, but it's this beautiful setting, and it just feels like this sort of adventurous hub because everybody's there to just jump right on the trails and do some outdoor activities. And then they also have a sauna, which we didn't use this week, but I've used it in the winter, and it's really nice. You just sign up for the sauna. And really nice bathrooms, which kind of seems silly, but it's actually a big deal whenever we come up here. Everybody makes their first bathroom trip, and then they're always like, the bathrooms are really nice here. And you expect this kind of outhouse thing.
But they're actual flush toilets.
They're flush toilets. They don't smell like bathrooms.
Right. They're not
like you think they
they're
would
not
at a
vault
camp
toilets
setting.
like a regular campground
Yeah.
where that odor comes
Yeah.
up. They've got water in them. They flush.
Yeah. So it's kind of a simple, minimalist place, but things are nice. And I've been up here several times.
Yeah. So, and then they also have the tent camping.
Yep.
And so, like, kind of like this work from Rome rather than work from home thing, which became very popular during the pandemic. It is, lots of people can work from home, but as you said, they don't necessarily, maybe they live in an urban area or maybe wherever, but I think the opportunity to go someplace different in the middle of a forest, you might even camp. You could even set up a tent and still work there. Bring your laptop. There's power there.
Yeah.
And then to have all those other amenities, the warm shower in the morning, that sort of stuff. It makes the sort of, it's a glamping version of camping.
It is, and we spent a lot of time working outside too.
Right.
You know, when I was here back in June, the mosquitoes were horrible. I'm here now, today's August 1st, and the weather is perfect. I mean, it's 75 degrees, perfect temperature, and there's pretty much not a single mosquito. So we worked from the picnic table for a couple hours, worked from the hammock, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, and the access to town and stuff is kind of handy too. So Rome makes you feel like you're in the middle of the forest, which you are.
Right.
But you're not really all that far from the Sawmill Saloon or from Cable, where you can get most things, and Hayward, where you could get almost anything you need if you're working in, like, oh no, I need something, or I have to go print something, or something like that.
Yep, we biked 15-mile round trip to supper at River's Eatery in Cable the first night. Then we did 8-mile round trip to Sawmill for supper last night. Lake Helene loop was like 10 miles. And then this morning I rode on Sealy Pass as well. So there's a lot of things that are pretty close. You do feel like you're way out there, but there's some pretty fun stuff really close.
Yeah, cool. So that's great. It's kind of a cool concept that the folks at Rome are marketing. So if you don't mind, I'd like to switch a little bit over to your website, The North, and just have you explain a little bit how, I think probably anybody that's listening to this has probably seen it. I know you promote the podcast on that website as well, but why don't you explain a little bit how it came to be? And
yeah, there were really two reasons I started The North. I wanted to get into the outdoor industry, and I wanted a resource for us, for our area of adventure cyclists. So 2 years ago, I was looking for work. I was in between jobs, wanted to get into the outdoor industry, and I just couldn't get my foot in the door there. But I had published articles for bikepacking.com and adventure cycling. I was an ambassador for Kona Bikes and had done content for them. So I thought, well, why not just, put your articles on your own site, just like you've done. Mm-hmm. And so that was one reason. And the other was that I wanted something for us, for our little area. We have our own special thing here. And one of my favorite sites is bikepacking.com, but they cover the whole world. And they do a really good job of doing that. But I remember when we had one bikepacking route, that was your Tour de Chequamegon. And then when Straddle and Paddle came out, it felt like this huge thing, like our area has another bikepacking route. Now, you can go bikepacking anywhere, but if you're new to it, it's not that easy to find good places to go. You have to study different maps to kind of figure out where roads are going through public property, where there's gravel. And then if you don't know somebody in that area, you don't know the good spots. You don't know those secret lakes. You don't know the waterfalls. So it's really nice to have vetted routes from locals that can help point you in the direction of a great place to go bikepacking. So I started with this kind of experimental question of, is there enough going on in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and the Upper Peninsula to keep a content engine going all year long? And will people submit routes? And will people submit stories? And how do we show people where those great gravel areas are in new places? Because I want to adventure to new places, but it's not easy to know where the good gravel is. Gravelmaps.com will tell you where there is gravel. Heat maps will tell you where people ride, but that doesn't always tell you where the local favorite places are.
Right.
So the North, I've tried to have the North be this place where we can all share our stories, we can all share our favorite routes, we can share gravel guides, and the best places to go when you're not biking, like, when you're in Cable, where do you go to eat, drink, and hang out? And we've tried to aggregate some of those, and it's all been part of this big experiment of, is there enough going on that we can keep a resource like this going and continue to add to it while bringing us all together?
I mean, I think there's no question that there is enough going on. Gravel, the events are exploding, so I'm always finding out about some new gravel event, and
Yes.
and bike packing in this region, I think, is now getting more and more popular. More people are doing it. I see people leaving from that Cable parking lot all the time.
Yeah.
I used to stop and ask them, "Oh, where are you going?" And 9 out of 10 times it was, "Oh, we're riding that Tour de Schwamingen route," and I'm like, "Yeah,
That's
I know
so
that.
cool.
I know the guy that did that." But
Yeah.
but now I don't even ask because
Yeah.
it's just ubiquitous
established.
to see people in there, and like, I don't
Yeah.
need to know where everybody's going. Initially I was kind of curious
Yeah.
how they heard about it and
Right.
stuff. So
But to your point, there is tons going on. And now I've learned that even what I can cover is not even 10% of what's going on. I mean, there's so many great events. There's so many great people with neat stories, resources. We cover a little bit of it, but there really is a whole mountain of...
that's the other thing that is, having run like the magazine for the Bike Fed and stuff like that, finding there's lots of people doing this, and there's lots of people that maybe Instagram or something like that, but finding content creators that will give you something that you could use later in a cohesive, bite-sized,
Right.
reasonably well organized, written, photographed, or
Yeah.
videotaped, thing is a whole different deal. Shane
Yeah.
is great. He's one of the best route creators I know.
Absolutely.
He rides incessantly, and he always goes down every road that you wonder where that goes, and figures it out,
Yep.
and finds his way and comes up with an amazingly well-researched route.
Yes.
But he just doesn't like to write. He doesn't want to bring a camera along. It's even hard to get him to switch out of the Instagram mode to shoot horizontal if you want to display stuff on a laptop, for a website, which is the traditional format for that.
Right.
So I think there's more Shanes out there
Yeah.
that are doing all kinds of great things.
But at some point, it depends on somebody writing,
Right.
putting the time in to do the
share it.
writing, to shoot the photos. And the nice thing is, our phones have come so far.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm out, and I know when you're out, we're both shooting on Sony cameras, but it is really nice that cameras have come a long ways, and a lot of people do just submit their iPhone photos, and they look pretty nice.
Yes, I do carry a camera, but if I don't every ride. I just went.
right.
I had a couple of reports that the Valhalla. You and Eric did that Valhalla Beach Party route with me, and I've had a couple of reports of people riding it this year that said, "Oh, one section's really bad, and you should get rid of that. There's dead trees, down trees everywhere."
I think I remember what section that might be.
And then other people like, "That's a private road. There's a private roadside." So I got a couple of comments back, so I just went and re-rode 2/3 of that route. And because I wasn't republishing or anything, like, I just brought my iPhone, and like, if you're careful with your iPhone, and you can share 3, 4, the new ones even higher megapixel images.
Yeah.
You can
There's a lot
open up shadows. You can bring down the black point. You
Right.
can even vignette them a little bit. And then you can edit them in Photoshop. So I think that's fine. You just need to be a little thoughtful. The Instagram format, vertical format, just doesn't work well for a website.
Right.
And you just have to be a little thoughtful about composition, so things aren't super crooked, or there isn't a bunch of flare from the sun coming in.
Yeah.
That's all you really got to do.
Yep.
But but if you think about it, I think there's way more going on than either you and I have any. And I feel like we have our fingers on the pulse of things as much as most or anybody in the region. But I think there's the UP and the whole like Arrowhead region of Minnesota, like I know there's more people out there with cool routes and bike packing and stuff like that than we're seeing.
Yeah, there's room for a lot of cool
they're
resources
just doing
up
it.
there.
They're just doing it, and they're just doing it because they live there and they're not. They don't feel any need to share it with anybody.
Right.
But yeah, so the North website, I've seen a lot of growth on it, a lot of improvement. I hope like the podcast. This podcast is a super work in progress. This is not my,
I love the podcast. I listen to it while I work. I listen to every minute of it. I really enjoy it. I think you and TJ, you guys are entertaining. You cover neat things. You know this area and these people so well. I've enjoyed hearing your guests talk about things I had not even heard of were going on in this area. And so I think it's a really valuable resource.
Good.
You get that FaceTime with people, and so.
It is a work in progress. It will get better. And I mean, I had this vision for it that it was like sort of Prairie Home Companion, but actually the news from Wobegon is actually about a real place. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about Sealy and the Chequamegon Forest area.
Yeah.
And I like to give that sort of like update on like the phenology and what's going on in the woods these days, because we're all bike people that are listening to this probably, but the reason we're doing this is because we like coming up here, and so to know like, the fawns are dropping, or which flowers are the butterflies and the fly.
Yeah.
How are the flies doing, and then all that sort of stuff. I think it helps to give.
Well, it tells a story about a place. We like stories. We want to go be a part of things that are a part of a story. And, from your intro to, talking about bustling downtown Sealy and the Hollywood Hills and the latte at the sawmill.
Some of that, again, is stolen.
It's fun, but I think it makes you feel like you're part of a story.
Right. So I kind of like, again, that sort of Prairie Home Company where the buttermilk biscuits, and like I was like, what's our buttermilk?
Bush Light.
Who am I promoting? I should promote the sawmill. That's where I go most. So
that's so cool.
So with your website, one of the new things that you've been doing, not new, but it's relatively recent, are the gravel guides, the area
this year.
guides.
First one was this year.
Yeah.
So those are new.
So those aren't, we can call that new.
Yeah, it's new. We've got 4 done. So Lanesboro, Minnesota, La Crosse.
And that's down where, like
the Filthy 50.
Filthy 50 and a couple other.
So Trenton Rager helped with the Lanesboro one. Chris Stint from La Crosse helped with the La Crosse one. Andy Cabrera, who runs the bike shop in Iron Mountain, helped with an Iron Mountain guide. And then I worked on an Eau Claire gravel guide. We have 2 more in the works. And so again, just trying to answer this question of where should I go ride? I know where the cool places generally are. Iron Mountain would be fun to visit, but where do I ride if I want to go there? And we want to connect people to a local who knows the best places to ride and what you should do when you're off the bike.
Right. That's the thing too, because and you can do that research on your own. And I enjoy some of that myself. And I like putting together routes and doing that research and stuff like that. But if you're a person who works, 50, 60 hours a week with a family, and you've got a short vacation time, and you've just got to get in on stuff, and you're at soccer practice or coaching baseball or whatever, and you don't have time for all that research on a route.
It takes a lot of time.
But you want to go and maximize your enjoyment of a 5-day trip or even a weekend trip.
Right.
It's nice to be able to you might not know about what's the craft brewery in, whatever town you're going through, or which restaurant should I stop at? Where the heck is the restaurant?
Right.
And
sometimes what's popular generally is different for what's popular within the segment of cyclists. So you can go to your TripAdvisor and find out what's popular, but cyclists have their spots. They have, and sometimes you go to a place and you just want to know where the riders are all hanging out.
Yeah. And I'm kind of I was happy to see that gravel guide from Iron Mountain.
That's a really cool one.
Yeah. And Andy, I don't know Andy. I talked to him. I connected with him about the that new Marinette. That's what Shane and I were calling it, the Marinette waterfall route.
Sure.
Which is kind of like it's a 3-day, it'd be like 3 60, 70 mile days to do it. And it's it's only about 18 waterfalls instead of like 28 or 30, but it's concentrated And so Shane, who lives in Wausau, he was going to start it at the Jars and Bars pub, I think, in Laona,
Okay.
which is where the home to
The Bear 100.
the Bear 100 gravel race. And there's tons of gravel in that whole area, great riding. And the Nicolet Roche Forest is there, and all those county forests are filled with endless gravel and ATV tracks and stuff like that.
Yep.
So he took one of my routes. When I was initially researching the waterfall route, it was going to start at Dave's Falls down that way in Marinette County, I think it's Amberg, and go up all the way up to Duluth. It was going to be like it was going to be a one-way.
Oh, that's cool.
But then I was like, well, so I researched all that stuff all into Iron Mountain and all those places in between. I didn't like the connection between Iron Mountain and through Florence County. The roads are gorgeous, but it's very hilly and there's big rivers, so they're limited through routes.
Sure.
They're very, Northwoodsy, hilly, curvy, no shoulders.
Yeah.
Everybody's driving 65 miles an hour on them.
Yeah.
And I want to be on gravel because nobody's on it.
Right.
Right. I don't want to have to make a 30-mile or even a 15-mile connection. I don't want to send somebody else on one of them. Even if it's pretty, it's a gorgeous paved road, but the sight lines are so bad.
Yeah, it is different.
I couldn't figure out a good connection without going way out of my way to connect from Iron Mountain over towards Iron River, Michigan, and then in Bessemer, that area. And I couldn't. Also, I thought a 480-mile one-way route. There's all these transportation issues with like who's going to drop their car and then drive 450 miles back to where the start is.
Right.
Those
are cool routes, but
right. So I did the loop instead, and I left all that stuff, that southern stuff in Marinette. I never used it. And they're great waterfalls down there. So Shane used a bunch of that stuff and then looped it back. So he went up to Iron Mountain, didn't go through Florence County, and just looped it back down to Laona.
Okay.
So, but again, the Laona start is just like, it's like this little out and back section. It's close to Wausau, so that's why he picked it. Like I picked the Cable Municipal parking lot for my routes, right?
Right. Accessibility.
But I think a better route, and this is why I bring this up again relative to your Iron Mountain route, is like this route could be on even though it doesn't go into Michigan very much, a really good start and ending point would be Iron Mountain. Yeah. And I talked to Andy about parking. Could people leave their cars on those right behind their main street where his bike shop is and stuff like that?
Sure.
There's public parking lots. And he said he checked with their town and like, yes, people can just leave
that's cool.
vehicles behind in those parking lots.
Okay.
So they're in a public spot, so you're not leaving your car in the middle of nowhere for 5 days or something where you're a little unsure about leaving it in the middle of the woods.
Right. And you can start and end in a place that has a cool place to eat and drink, you know, which is always nice.
Right, which again, that's a part of the cable, the attraction of the cable.
Yes.
Not just the municipal parking lot, but it's got Rivers Eatery, the Portage Bar, Cable Cafe, Rondo's.
Which is just as much a part of that ride experience, you know,
So I really want to try to finish this route off this year.
That'd be cool.
It's only 3 days, but I think I mentioned this to you. My wife and I both were retired, but we made this mistake this year. We're fully out of the pandemic now. When we first moved up here, it was in the middle of the pandemic. Nobody asked us to do anything, right? Except be on some Zoom calls and things. There were no volunteer opportunities or can you work a shift at the pizza place? And now all of a sudden our calendar just got full this summer.
Yep.
And before I knew it, I couldn't take 4 days off.
Yep.
I haven't been able to take 4 days off.
Right.
Up until, I still can't for another 2 weeks until maybe after Ride Across Wisconsin, which I help with too.
Yeah.
So we have all these weird volunteer things. I haven't been bike packing all summer.
Yeah.
Just because I don't really need to do an overnighter here because I live in the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
So it's not like that. If you're in a city, I used to do that all the time, just doing those sub 24 quick trip to a park just to get out of Dodge, you know, and sit in a park and, you know, a couple hours north of Milwaukee or west of Milwaukee or something. I don't need to do that here.
Now, scouting a new area and putting something new on the map is a more.
I'm excited about
adventure.
that, and I'm excited to publish this route. But it hasn't been. Shane and I have both ridden all of it.
Yeah.
And all the little connectors, but until I ride something with somebody else, usually, so I get somebody else's feedback. What do you think about this section? You know,
that helps a lot.
I don't want to publish it until I do that. So
Yeah.
So I'm hoping after Ride Across Wisconsin, maybe Tom Schuler and I he got a place up here now, and he has been one of my. He loves just following me and doesn't care what road I lead him down.
Sure.
And I kind of have to actually keep an eye on him because if I don't, he's turned down a road that he wants to see what's on.
Oh, sure.
Or he sees some weird vintage sign and he's talking to somebody about, hey, can I buy your old paint sign? You know, so I have to keep an eye on him a little bit. But he's a great,
awesome.
When you travel with people on bikepacking trips, it's finding that it's not just about fitness levels and stuff. It's
Right.
about having a good
People
personality
whose
match.
styles really fit together, right?
Right.
The type of riding, things you want to see, what you stop for.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Will you stop?
Will you stop? Right.
I've had friends that I've ridden with who are like, sort of more pro level, top level Cat 1 rider sort of
Yeah.
guys. I'm not that guy anymore.
Yeah.
And they're like, why would we stop? I've got like a power bar. Why would we stop and eat at this tavern? Let's keep going. I'm like,
Well, then you and I are always bringing cameras, so we have to give everybody a disclaimer. We're going to go on this route, and
Yes.
I need to shoot some pictures. And sometimes I'm going to tell you, hey, go back up that
do
hill. I need a picture of you coming down the hill. And so there is some of that stopping. So you got to find people who are cool with it.
I did that with a writer friend of mine for one of my first. It wasn't called bikepacking back then. We did
Yeah.
a beers across Wisconsin. We rode gravel roads and trails from the Potosi Brewery on the Mississippi all the way across to Milwaukee and hit all the microbreweries we could all the way across the state. And like we started in Dubuque and we got to like the Dickeyville Grotto and everything was good. I took pictures of us at the Dickeyville Grotto, which is very cool. Anybody that hasn't been in the Dickeyville Grotto really should do that. It's in Grant County. The riding in Grant County is amazing. Lots of gravel, no traffic. It's unglaciated, so it's
nice.
driftless region. It's great. And it's just south of Potosi, so you can ride up to Potosi Brewery and then go over to Lake New Glarus and do that. But anyway, as soon as we left the Dickeyville Grotto, we got on the road and there was this gorgeous farm field behind with all kinds of rolls of hay, and the sun was kind of setting. And I asked him to do that. He's like, "Well, I hope we're not going to do this the whole trip, where I have to stop and you want to take a picture." I'm like, "Yeah, we're doing this for a story, John. Yeah, that's what
This is part of it.
So that is part of the deal of
Yeah.
going on these trips.
Yeah, right.
If we're technically documenting it.
If you're documenting something, right.
So anyway, I'm looking forward to that trip. I think we're going to do it at the end of August, and hopefully by late fall, I'd be able to publish that route. I'll publish it on your website. Again, I think it wouldn't be a bad ad for the Iron Mountain. If they're not opposed to dipping into Wisconsin,
Right.
and then bikepacking.com, it'll get published on, and I think it's. The larger water, 380 mile loop is still great. And there's more waterfalls and more variety, but this is like a tighter 3-day trip. So I think people might enjoy it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's next on my agenda. You said you're going somewhere with your brother?
Yes, in just like 3 days, I'm going to Itasca County, Minnesota with a couple friends.
And where is Itasca County?
Where is Itasca County? I don't know Minnesota geography really well, but it's northern Minnesota, kind of past the Iron Range. Lake Itasca, the headwaters of the Mississippi, used to be in Itasca County. Oh. So people think, I've been to Lake Itasca. You went to Itasca County? Great. Well, they changed the county borders. So the lake is not in the county anymore, but it is way up there. And wanting to scout new area, Minnesota has so much great cycling, but even the 3 routes for Minnesota all just hug the line of Wisconsin. And I just thought it'd be neat to have something further in, a little deeper in an area.
Oh, so you guys are kind of doing your own route.
We are scouting a new route.
Just scouting a new route.
A new route.
Oh,
yep.
cool.
We're going to do it in 2 nights. I think it's like 105 miles or something.
Cool.
Some dispersed camping, some campsite camping if we're lucky, but I couldn't find any info on this area. I was trying to find a local...
Did you talk to like the folks at like Sodero or Jeremy Kershaw or anything?
I connected a little bit with a bike shop in Grand Rapids, but wasn't able to get too much. But I should have reached out to them. I did talk to the forestry department, and I was really glad I did, because we had this segment that is a winter-only gravel road. And she said, okay, this is a segment that's 300 yards long that's flooded. Here's another segment that's 300 yards that's flooded. This really long, wet stretch that we were going to try to go through. And she said, just do this quick reroute around it, and it's a totally dry road. And I thought,
that's pretty handy.
That would have been a long day trying to...
However, people say stuff is you can't get through.
That's true.
They're thinking about motor vehicles oftentimes.
That's
if it's
true.
300 yards and it's only knee deep, you just shoulder your bike and you hike a bike through it. That's part of bikepacking.
When you have one chance, one scouting trip,
Yeah.
you kind of got to find a route that's 90% chance is going to be really great. If I had the luxury of going back a couple times, I could do that, but I kind of needed something that I am fairly sure is going to be a home run.
That's fairly far.
It's
up
pretty
there.
far north.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. So that'll be new.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Are you going to publish any photos on the Recon, or are you just going to wait until you?
I think I'll publish some photos on the Recon, and I want to post a post that we're going there this week too, and let people know we're headed up there, and there will be a route coming. I haven't done that yet, but yeah, I want to kind of update people along the way.
Yeah, you should offer maybe if anybody wants to, be at the Grand Depart or something, or meet you, tell you where to grab a beer and meet you there. Maybe
Yeah,
you might
I think
get
it's
some
in
more
the middle of
local knowledge.
nowhere. I think it's really far up there.
So here's something
That would be fun.
Here's something like I was mentioning how I rerode 2/3 of the Valhalla route because I got some rider feedback that said one section was all down trees and deadfall and virtually impassable, and another another group rode it and said, oh, one of your things said private road. So we didn't go that way. And so I went and rewrote it because I didn't remember any of that when we did it. There are a couple of ATV trails that are narrower, 2-track stuff, but nothing that I thought was bad.
Yep.
So I went and wrote it, and none of those complaints were accurate, at least any longer.
Yeah.
I think the ATV trail that the guys rode, they rode that in June. So June in the Northwoods is still the end of winter, at least it was this year. So, and there were so many deadfall that it's quite possible that that ATV route or forest road was cleared.
Yeah.
And I did see evidence of saw cuts of some deadfall, not a ton, but not as much as he made it sound like, but I could see definitely, so maybe they just threw a bunch, swamped a bunch off and opened that trail up. And then the other thing was, I think the person was confused. I saw there is a sign that says, where they mentioned that says private road, but you don't go that, you go that, it's right out of Valhalla pub and remember
Which really
where we
there?
hit that, you go up that sort of gravel road, because you're in all those, there's like those cabins kind of there, and there's some people live there, and then you hit an ATV trail that immediately starts climbing in super soft sand.
Yeah.
And right when you hit that, there's a sign that says private road. But maybe they just looked at it and and didn't realize the private road was private. That way. The public ATV trail kept going left. So maybe they did that.
Could be.
But these things, and then I got another feedback on somebody on the waterfall route that said one of the routes into Spring Camp Falls, and there are 2 ways to get into Spring Camp Falls. That's on the way to Iron River. That's just south of Iron River. Were all but impassable. So that just brought up this idea that, like, I really need to, if I'm going to be the
keeper of the
route, I need to somehow every year check on these things, because private land issues changed. You know, the Shawinigan Mountain Bike Festival, Rosie's Field is no longer open anymore. It's now a development. So things change that maybe for 40 years you've always done it, and then suddenly it's not.
It's a no-go.
So I think a route steward, part of my responsibility, I think, is to to write. So that's making me like, all right, I'm not going to publish too many more of these because there's only so many.
I really depend on the community. I think you're right. I think there is something to be said for that, but we get notes all the time from readers who say, you published this is actually the case, or you list this trail, but it's actually not open in the winter, you know. So I do lean on the community for feedback.
And that's great. And I appreciate, that's how I found out about this from rider feedback. But then I still had to go.
You still had to go and check it out.
Go and check it out. And
come up with a solution.
And so I was like, you know what? Maybe every spring or post-spring, I'm going to put on my calendar and block them off again, so I get a bikepacking trip in early, and I don't accidentally agree to volunteer for something up here. Yeah. I'm going to block off. I'm going to ride my Tour de Schwamingen route, my Valhalla route, and my waterfall route. I'm just going to ride them the start of the year each year, maybe. It gives me an excuse to go ride a route that I like, and then it also allows me to check on stuff. Because even if somebody does give you that feedback, then what do? You gotta follow it up.
You gotta follow it up. You're right. You're right.
So I don't know. It's just something to think about. So when you create your route way up there, you might want to see if it's like those adopt a highway signs.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe we should have adopt a route signs. If we could have
Dave, you look like you're looking for things to do. Would you be the steward?
That's too far for me. Yeah. You create something in Sealy or Cable, maybe I can help you out. But not the Arrowhead region. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. And
good point.
I was thinking about like emailing Logan and those guys at bikepacking.com, and once I adjust these things, so like I was going to say, maybe it's a good idea for me to note on all of my routes that winter up here can last a long time and it can be brutal, and that means lots of deadfall trees are falling on roads and trails that often don't I was skiing the week after April. So it takes a long time. All those trails are cleared by volunteers. So it can take
there's spring cleaning
till
to
July. 4th of July, you might not have all the ATV or mountain bike trails cleared up here, because of all the. So maybe there should be in the must-know section in these. If you're going in spring, be aware that could happen. And then the other thing I thought might be a useful thing to include on routes for northern Wisconsin is, because I always like to put those POIs for the restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those open and close.
They really do.
They go out of business.
That's tough to keep that updated.
Or their hours change dramatically. Everybody post-pandemic, I don't care if you're in Eau Claire or Chicago or New York or Milwaukee, all my friends in the service industry are having trouble finding staff.
Big time.
So they're doing things like reducing hours, reducing menu items, stuff like that.
Yep.
Up here, it's always been a problem up here. And that made it even worse.
Right.
So when I put a POI down, maybe a good idea is to always have one bikepacking freeze-dried meal and a stove in your bag. Don't depend on, I got this one restaurant in the middle of nowhere and that's where I'm getting my food.
Right. You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I just thought those might be things I might add to must-know things for routes. So.
Yep.
Well, I don't really have too much more. I know you got to get back to your thing and...
Yep, I'm heading right home after this. We did our 3 days at Rome and then I'm heading home right from here.
Cool. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show. It was good to see you again. And will we see each other at the Bikepacking Summit, if not before?
I will not be able to make it to that.
You're not?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I bike in that area all the time. We have a cabin up there, so I was just biking by Jack Lake and by some of the other camping options and on those routes, but I will not be at the summit.
Oh, okay.
No, but it seems like a really cool thing. I do hope people check that out. Shane has made these routes. His routes really are always great. Whenever I go up there, I'm always consulting Shane's routes. He does a really good job. Cool camping at Jack Lake. Right. Great community if you want to meet other bikepackers or just be in community doing what you love. You should really check that out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to go over for that, but only for a little bit. I've got, again, other things on my calendar.
Yeah.
And the Schwamingen Mountain Bike Festival is the weekend right after that, so I do a lot of work for that the week before.
Yep.
And then the Hodag Ramble is that same weekend.
Are you going to do that?
I might just go and check it out. I haven't ever been. My
so
wife's
cool.
kind of from the area. She's from Harrison, a little bit outside of that. But I've got a really good friend who's got a family farm in Rhinelander. So I might just go check it out. It's got my kind of vibe to it. And just see
it looks like it has a really cool vibe.
Yeah.
And it's base camping. So
Right.
it's not a bike packing event,
Right.
though it has similar feels, but
Right.
you're staying at, I think, Jeff Rain's family's place.
Right.
And then you're going on rides during the day, you're going swimming, and then but everybody's all hanging out at the same spot.
Yeah.
Without going from A to B.
Right. So so those are my plans. But I guess I will see you when you return the gear that year.
We'll see you.
Gear
Yep,
that
in
year.
like 1 week.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks again, Josh.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
Bye, everybody.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that chat with Josh from the North. Check out his website, thenorth.com, and maybe consider joining as a Patreon member and supporting all the work that he does to curate all those great routes, do gravel race reports, probably has the most complete gravel race calendar for the upper Midwest out there on the web, and help him with, he doesn't really make a bunch of money off of that website at all. He's got a real job, but that will help support all the time he puts into it and some of the costs, of hosting a website like that. And so anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that chat with him, and you'll join us again on our next Ramble, which will, as I said, will be with Joe V and TJ, where we'll give an in-depth overview of the progress that's being made on the gravity trails at the truck trails powered by OTM at Telemark. And speaking of that, that's another reason I wanted to jump back on at the end of the show, was because I forgot to give a shout out to another listener who reminded me, or let me know actually, I didn't know about this, that there's a brand new Enduro. Last week we were talking about TJ's Transylvanian Enduro series, and he said, hey, we're having a new Enduro down here at Standing Rocks County Park. So that is, let's see if I can get to that on my my viewer here and show you the Standing Rocks. Sorry, I'm flashing through. So Standing Rocks County Park is down by here we are. All right, I'm going to jump over to the screen here. I'll put myself in a picture down in the bottom corner. So Standing Rocks County Park is down by Stevens Point. There's some ski trails there and mountain bike trails. I haven't ridden there in a long time, but I've heard that they've done a lot of work to the trails in recent years. You can probably see that looks like pretty good flow stuff, as this guy's getting some air in this photo for the Standing Rocks Enduro promo. And you can find that on their Facebook page. It's August 19th, Saturday, August 19th. I don't think TJ is going to be there because he's pretty busy with his stuff here, the Trek Trails, but and I can't go because I will be working the ride across Wisconsin that same day. So if you go, maybe and you shoot any video or something, you can send that to us, and I can play it. Maybe the guys at Standing Rocks can send me something and I can play that on a future show, or just give us a race report on how it went. You can do that with an email and I'll read it, or you can you could also send me a video, just a selfie video of you talking about your race and give a race report, or send a voice memo and I can try to play that and plug it into one of the future shows. So hopefully somebody will do that and we'll get an update on that Standing Rocks Enduro. I also wanted to, I forgot to mention about all the berry picking that is normally happening right around now in this area. That's part of bike packing and riding gravel roads and stuff, is stopping and getting one of nature's snacks along your route. And the Northwoods is usually filled with berry plants. Typically raspberries are rocking right now, and they're not doing as well as they have in previous years. I think because of the drought, the raspberry pickings are kind of slim. These I'm showing now, if you're watching this on video, are thimbleberries. The side of Telemark mountain is just covered with thimbleberries this year. So that crop is doing really well. And if you're not familiar with thimbleberries, they look kind of like a big rounder raspberry with smaller little raspberry cluster cells, whatever those things are called on raspberries. I suppose I should have looked that up on berries. But they have a really punchy flavor. They've got like just this tremendous berry flavor, much more powerful than raspberries. And the blueberry pickings at the farms up in Bayfield, those are good. I just got a bunch from my friend's farm, Blue Vista Farm. If you're looking for a place to get blueberries, a bike rider guy, Sam Hughes, also former hotshot firefighter guy, Sam Hughes and Lizzie, they've got a great farm up in outside of Bayfield, in the town of Bayfield, called Blue Vista Farm. That's where we get our cultivated blueberries. But the wild blueberries, I was managed to find a bunch. Okay, on the video now I'm showing my hand. I picked some raspberries that I was able to find next to the thimbleberries on Telemark Mountain, and you can see the difference. The thimbleberries are really hard, delicate, and really hard to pull off without sort of squashing them a little bit, and raspberries are a little plumper looking. But like I said, taste those thimbleberries if you get an opportunity to see some. And back to the blueberries, though. So when I was riding in Bayfield, checking out the Valhalla Beach Party route, the blueberries, I was finding wild blueberries in reasonable quantities, surprisingly, despite how dry it's been. I found a good patch on the forest road that goes by Horseshoe Lake Campground, and it was fairly easy for me to stop on the side of the road and quickly fill handfuls with berries and get a tasty snack courtesy Mother Nature. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks again for coming along on another Northwoods Ramble with me, and I hope you'll join our next one, which should be featuring Jovi and TJ. And with that, I'll let my buddy Hugh Robert Masterson, Hugh Bob and the Hustle, take us out with another of his great Northwoods songs. Adios, everybody.
North country, no power lines, no dead end streets.